Hello out there. I'm the eldest nerd, and I'm happy to say that we are back with another Talking Movies with Professor O. Professor O is with us in Oklahoma, somewhere close to Tulsa. And by close, I mean
Yeah.
somewhere within a day's driving distance. I think we have a lot of empty land in Texas and in Oklahoma, and it's good to see you
Yes.
again. Happy New Year to you, sir. We're
Oh,
happy to be able to get
absolutely.
back onto
You
this.
too. Delighted to be here.
I'm still a little bit under the weather, so please bear with me if I'm coughing in the middle of this. Doesn't mean that I have any problem with these films, other than the fact that I have problems with these films. We're we're doing we're doing our tribute to Roger Corman today, and that will include two of his science fiction movies: Battle Beyond the Stars, which had Richard Thomas, George Papard, and Robert Vaughn. And then we'll talk about The Galaxy of Terror, which was kind of a follow up movie in which there was a completely different universe with a completely different cast. But both of these films, I think, are worthy of talking about, and we'll get right on it. Let's start now with Battle Beyond the Stars. This was an interesting thing. I think it's the first real space movie that Roger Corman did, right?
Yes, he would do did a lot of alien invasion films in the 50s. There were some really good, creepy, always creative on a shoestring budget alien invasion films.
Yeah.
But yeah, in set in space, I can remember he had produced. There's some that he was connected to so many films because he produced so many films, and of course he started the Roger Corman Film School with it's the unofficial film school. It's just he helped train. He was so when he
It
could
was
see young
basically that he
talent.
paid people so little that he called it a school, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But
He was good at spotting talent though, and just the amount the number of the names of people that are associated him. It is basically a huge part of classic of kind of like new
yes,
film school Hollywood, classic Hollywood. Even to this day, names that will pay a tribute to him because he gave him a chance. But yeah, I think really as far as like any setting a film in space, this would be about the first one that I can think of for sure.
I think
Uh,
so. And it says something we were talking about. Not only did he give a number of young actors a shot, but also took a lot of the older actors that weren't getting work and gave them a paycheck. I don't think that any of them took much of this seriously. This film, in fact, was one of the most expensive they ever did. It was like $2 million to make this film, and most of that was to pay George Papard and Robert Vaughn, who
right,
were I mean, George Papard was still doing the A Team, I think, by this time. Robert
right.
Vaughn was remembered as the Man from Uncle and did a lot of TV movies, but this was obviously a paycheck film for him too. And I don't know that he had really that much screen time, but he certainly chewed the scenery very well with that. Then we
Well,
have Richard.
they both
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh
they
yeah, oh
both
yeah.
did.
Yeah,
That's you
George
could just
Papard played a perfect Han Solo. I think if without seeing Harrison Ford ever do the job, you would think, well, maybe he could be. But
yeah, I with Harrison Ford with a belt that made scotch and soda with ice cubes. Just
well, yeah.
incredible. I love that. That's the
Whatever they can come up with, I think. Yeah, there's other things. We have John Saxon and Sybil Danning and Sam Jaffe very briefly in this film. Morgan Woodward. I mean, we have an all-star cast here. It's amazing that they could get all those people together, but I guess most of them were basically doing TV episode type of stuff. Julia
I,
Duffy is in here, and I think this is before Newhart, so this may be she may be our up and comer in this film.
oh my goodness, I missed that. Before Newhart, the Juliet.
Yeah,
That is amazing. That yeah, I totally missed her. Yeah, Sam Jaffe from uh the day the Earth stood still.
right.
It's so good to see him again with his and what a creepy. Yeah, that's one of the early. It's basically yeah. You were talking about the plot. They've got to we before we started.
Yeah,
They have to basically Richard Thomas, John Boy,
Right, right.
Shad in the film has got to get mercenaries to save the planet. Because my goodness, and John Saxon's just fantastic. Another great character actor, as playing basically kind of a Darth Vader sort of role.
Yes.
A little bit more talkative, but he's Sador, leader of the Malmori Raiders, and he comes over the planet. It's just
Yeah.
and I will take your planet. It's mine. It will be my next colony, which really feels topical today. But anyway, yeah,
I
uh,
wonder how. Marta Kristen was also there, off of Lost in
exactly.
Space, playing a character called Lux. So that another paycheck coming out there,
It
and
was so good to see her,
it was, it
and
was,
she did she you could and just a very quality cast. She played. It was a small role, but a very good role. She's there a couple three times. And speaking of Morgan Woodward, though, I missed him. I'm watching the movie. There he is at the end of
yeah,
the movie. He's in so much makeup as Cayman of the Lambda Zone,
right,
and that was, and he's, the first time I ever saw him was in Dagger of the Mind. As as a Star
sure,
Trek fan, you never forget that episode. And he feels like he's in his 70s at that point, like he's an older helper of the horrible doctor on that planet in Star Trek, his
yes,
older assistant. And here he is 14 years later, and he's in full makeup. But that's him, and that's his voice too. He totally, and he played that character with such enthusiasm. I mean, he did a great job. And of
yeah,
course, his assistants. I mean, to me, this is some of the most creative, really well thought out script by John Sayles,
yeah,
well thought out, um, different alien races, because he's even, he's working with the Kelvins, um, two short guys that basically communicate through degrees of heat, and they can
right,
heat up hot dogs later on.
yes. So yeah, that was the more odd thing about this. I mean, otherwise odd movie. The interesting stuff about this, of course, is the art direction on here, and we had James Cameron. Are we right on who came in as just a gaffer
A
or
mo-
something like that, and then
I think that maybe they got him. They knew he could make models, and
yeah,
so Roger Corman, he doesn't show up every. I mean, he's a busy man, and it's
yeah,
not like he's off golfing. When he's got so many balls in the air. So, and I think sometimes part of that Roger Corman film school, where you had, and of course, I was telling my son last night, the some of the uh, people that came from the Roger Corman film school, Martin Scorsese,
right,
Ron Howard, Francis Ford Coppola, the music for this film, James Horner,
yes,
all got their start. And just Roger Corman willing to give him a start. They don't make much money at all, but and they could get fired on any day. But that's working for Roger Corman. It gives you
we've talked
experience.
about
So
this
here's about
before.
this guy that right, right,
That
right.
with Ron Howard, he said to Ron Howard, "You make this film, you'll never have to work for me again."
Oh. And Ron Howard took him up on it.
He did.
Well, the was it? I'm trying to remember the name of that film, but I can't. The Ron Howard film. It's
Yeah,
not
we've
like
talked
a
about
lot
it
of those
before.
films
Yeah,
were memorable. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, but yeah, James Cameron was. I think the person making the sets was woefully behind, and there's so many sets in this low budget film. It's
yes,
phenomenal. They bit off almost more than they could eat. Digest. They
right.
the yeah, the reach for this film is tremendous. So they're behind in sets, and somehow I think Gail and Hurd took James Cameron to Roger Corman, and Roger Corman said, "Well, hey, that's a good model. The outside of the ship as well as the inside of the ship. You're the art director. So yeah, he went from a model maker to the art director in one day,
Yeah, there's a
which
story.
is
Yeah, there's a story from James Cameron about that. He found out that if Corbin came in while he had people working on building a set, Corbin wouldn't like it. He'd say, you need to change this. But he said if they were on break and the set wasn't finished, he'd come in and say, I love it. And so after that, anytime that he knew that Roger was coming, what he'd do is he'd run all of his workers off the set. So Roger would come in, and whatever state it was in, he would say he liked it. He just, I think he was just thinking about how much it's going to cost to keep these people working.
that's yeah, money was that absolutely part of the equation every single day. And you were talking about the budget. Apparently, I think they might have even had uh, somewhere 5 to 6 million, but Roger Corman took half that money and bought the studio,
Yes,
which was a lumber company, if I'm correct. If
right. In Venice, California, he bought a lumber company that was and still with lumber in it. So they used some of that for the building stuff, and uh, and used that as a film location for just about everything he made after that.
Right. That what somebody said that it was actually it turned a lot of his films. The positive thing was he had this controlled space that was fairly large. One of the crew members said you could tell how large it is because when you go to the wide shots of Sador's ship, you kind of don't see the edges of the walls when John Saxon is there at the back of the ship in the wide shot.
Yeah.
And if you go back any further at all, you're going to see lumber. That's how big the set was. It was as big as Sador's ship. And then apparently, I don't think they had a lot of other, and they really, I don't, it wasn't a classic sound stage in the sense that it could keep extraneous sound away. I don't think it
No.
was that well insulated, but I guess it was a little bit out of town, and so it did make it. Except for the flooding, because it
Yeah.
would flood. Apparently, it didn't leak. And it was cold. But other than that, it was an ideal location, the classic Roger Corman location. But apparently, he started doing more of his kind of more of his films inside instead of outdoors because instead of on location because he didn't have to get permits to shoot or anything like that. He had all the rooms he needed. But so, one critic said that kind of, or I think one of the crew members said it kind of limited his creativity a little bit because he would stay inside, but it saved money. And of course, Roger Corman would do
Sure.
everything to save money.
Well, it was costing more and more to make
But
films by that time, and he needed to do something to keep it cheap, or else he wouldn't be able to survive. I mean, there was only like one of his pictures that didn't make money.
exactly, and yeah, that could have been the one with Shatner, Intruder in the Dust,
Might have been.
from like 1960, and it was kind of a message film. He really wanted to make it was very much a civil rights oriented message film for against prejudice and racism, but it didn't make money, so he stayed away from message films after that. Um, but as far as entertainment, I there's a lot. This sometimes this film does not succeed, but sometimes it does. It's a real mixed bag, and it's not for lack of trying. I mean, the creativity of the film is, and I was impressed. One thing that really impressed me too, and the Projection Booth podcast kind of mentioned this too, is you sit back and look at each ship. There's so many different ships that
Yes.
Cameron designed. Each ship has got to have a bridge, a control room, and they all look different from each other. They all sort of reflect the personality of there's for working as fast and cheap and working all night long. They worked
Yeah.
incredibly hard. They got a lot out of the set design. It's amazing.
Yeah. I have been impressed with the set design in this picture, and should we talk about these design of the mothership? And I think that this was kind of a an interesting play on words for the design of the mothership.
Well, every ship needs breastplates. The
Yeah,
breastplating is important. With yeah, the mothership is. Uh, What's the story? Is there? I'm sure Corman was happy with the
He
design of the
was.
ship.
He was. I'm not certain if Cameron did it as a joke when he made the model, but as soon as uh, Corman saw it, he basically told Cameron that he caught the very essence of how he needed to design that.
Oh, just
Because I
unreal.
mean, his honestly, his sexual overtones in a lot of his pictures are what have sold his films.
Right, right. There was always that, and that's the Bill Warren book that we've talked about. Keep watching this, guys. He would always talk about, even in the 50s. Yes, there those exploitation elements were always there,
Yeah.
but so was all this other creativity that we were talking about. And if you're gonna do if you're gonna do something with the breast plating, I mean, you might as it certainly was not subtle. And
No, it was not.
that ship is unreal.
But certainly there wasn't another ship in the movies like that.
Right, right. the
Amazing what you can do with
the
paper mache.
oh, unbelievable what you could do with paper. Yeah, with paper
Yeah.
mache. What was your other favorite ship? Or what are some of the, because each one had, and each one kind of reflected the personality of the owner too.
That's true. I don't have a favorite in that, but they're all certainly
In that,
interesting.
yeah, I George Peppard's ship is is intriguing.
Yeah,
It does have, it's got all kind of a look, a rebel flag sort of, which kind of catches your attention. But I think the connotations, they were still connotations, obviously, in 1980. But somehow, when you cut to him and who he is, it's almost like that. It's more of a cowboy. He's just a real space cowboy, and inhaling that bad smoke with his cigarettes.
yeah.
There's a great line.
It's kind of a pun on itself. Space cowboy is something you think about as the adventurer in space, and so they actually just give him, a belt and a belt buckle and a cowboy hat, and there he has it. And he plays this uh, laid back redneck type, which is interesting for him. He usually plays very urbane characters.
That's true. And he made it work completely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whereas Robert Vaughn was more sticking with that Man from Uncle, spy,
Yeah.
the assassin type.
Yes,
That
certainly he
distinctive.
had more range than that, but that's how people would expect him to be. And his name being Gelt, which of course is German for gold, is something that shows that he is interested in money.
Right. Exactly. But what was so, again, another little creative touch. So you're at the end of that life. You've lived that life, and now you can't deal with anybody. No person wants to touch you. Everybody wants to kill you. And what would be tempting to you, if you really get into that character and you're so isolated from everybody else, what would be interesting to you would be a hot meal and some companionship, and
Yeah,
that's all it took. And for him to work for the planet Akir, to be a mercenary, because John Boy is getting all these mercenaries together.
well,
George Papard
it
has
is kind of the thing
10,000.
of the just cause. They put what Shad
Yes,
is out there is leading the just cause, and he sells everybody on that, and it's reasonable enough.
it's exactly right. The Nestor, which is an interesting race, and
Yeah,
again, they all have, and that ship is glowing. What's interesting too is you got to keep track of all these in 90 minutes. You got to keep track of about, well, seven.
yeah,
Seven ships. Definitely coming from the Seven Samurai. The Magnificent
right,
Seven. Corman being a blatant, Akira Kurosawa fan, inspired by him. And so you got these seven, and you got to keep track of seven different types of ships. And they make the ship's designs unique enough. So the Nestor have this glowing ship, which reflects the inside of their ship. It's all
right.
white and glowing. They all have a third eye. And I'm trying to, what their motivation for going after Sador. Morgan Woodward. I think his planet, or he'd been betrayed by Sato, or he completely hated him. All you had to do is mention the name, and Morgan
Yeah.
Woodward was on to this just cause to kill Sador. But it'll anyway. It'll the Nestor are a worthy mercenaries, not and they're not truly mercenary of spirit. They're very kind, but they are ready to help do what it takes to get after Sador.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking that it has kind of a little Lord of the Rings ring to it as well, because they gather people as they go along, and then they're all kind of on this same mission of bringing justice or something like that.
Bringing justice for the planet Akir, which
Yeah,
of course
yeah.
is named after Akira Kurosawa.
Why not?
Why? I love it. Yeah, that's named after.
Well, so much for Battle for before Beyond the Stars. Let's go to a truly awful film, and done with some very good people, though. And I think that it's worth pointing out that there were in Galaxy of Terror, there was not only very good actors in this, like Edward Albert on his way up, Ray Walston, Sid Haig,
Great
others,
actor.
Bernard Behrens, and let's see, Grace Zabriskie, you mentioned earlier before we got on the line that she of course went to Twin Peaks. She was a character in Twin Peaks, and
Right.
Taffy O'Connell. This I think was her first film. Later she did a lot of softcore stuff, and
Ah,
yeah, and well, I mean that's basically what she did here,
that's right. No,
and
she was
and
the
uh,
she's
and Robert Englund, who was later Freddy Krueger, but in this film he was a maintenance guy and really kind of the heart of the show. So I found that the casting of this was really quite good. The art direction was excellent. I pretty much I really did like the ship in this one, the Quest, than their design of the
you know
pyramid, all
what's
this kind of
interesting
stuff.
in it's interesting in both films. When I was in high school, of course, I loved making space films with Super 8, and of course, you'd
Yeah,
always back then everything was toggle switches for if you're gonna go to Radio Shack and you'd get some toggle switches. Learned how to wire up Christmas lights so I could on the control panels could make the toggle switches connect. And these are just looking at both of those films had the best switches.
yes.
It's not a lot of sliders, but they were and not, not that many dumb lights that just didn't mean anything. Like the classic lights. There's a lot of that in the. I mean, I like the ship in Lost in Space. It's pretty good design,
Yeah, it was.
but a lot of lights that had just no meaning at all. But these were just
I would give you
very,
one more on
the
that. Voyage to
no.
the Bottom of the Sea had all kind of lights
Oh God,
on the sea view that meant nothing.
meant nothing,
Yeah,
meaningless. And all of these had direct, but you flip the switch, it actually means something. Like just to go back to Battle Beyond the Stars for a second, when Richard Thomas goes to Gelt's ship,
yeah,
and he sees, oh wow, he sees, look like it's ads for dates, for hot dates that you could have. And each button he punches it, and all of a sudden the day, the women, it's kind of like Logan's Run a little bit, but the different
yeah,
women you could choose pop up. And then he punches the final button, the door opens, and she's like dead, but not, because she's this place hadn't been used in 30 years or 50 years. But each switch had a function, and each light meant something. And I really like that about that ship design.
yeah. I was very impressed with just how detailed they had the bridge of the Quest. I mean, it had consoles. There were at least three of them, and everything. They used the uniforms they used were they bought off Battlestar Galactica. It had just gone out of production, and they got them cheap, and so those were basically Battlestar Galactica uniforms with different patches. And
That's
then yeah, and let's see. Also, the corridors were lined. They were painted, of course, but they were McDonald's hamburger clamshells. If you go down that thing, it was all they were all takeout
that is
containers.
Oh, that's incredible. That is incredible. I'd heard a little bit. Yeah, maybe even with their Gail Ann Herb was talking about going through trash cans, getting those, the
Yeah.
styrofoam to,
A
yeah,
lot of places have used stuff like that. I mean, even in Star Trek Two, they would find things and make texture for the bridge. For instance, they had a cassette album that they used and had in the background behind the captain. If you notice, if you ever watch Star Trek Two again, it's there.
oh,
But with the
it's
way they did it was they would take it and they would make a casting of it and then put the casting up. In the Roger Corman case, they go straight to the styrofoam and just paint it and stick it to the wall.
exactly, exactly. Just speaking of Star Trek Two, the one more Battlestar, James Horner, that
Right.
music, if you're listening to Battlestar, Battle Beyond the Stars, and hearing that, you can just tell this is like a rough draft. This is a practice run for Wrath of Khan. There's
Yes.
so many notes that, and James Horner would definitely borrow
Well,
from
you know,
himself.
if you
But
listen to some of
in
the composers, they do a lot of things very similar. All of John Williams stuff, the Indiana Jones pictures soundtracks are not so far different from Star Wars, and the various different
no,
Star Wars
you're
movies are
right.
very, of course, very consistent. And other things that he has done has been similar to that. Amazing Stories, which was a series they did here for Spielberg, was also used John Williams, and it was very. The only thing that was really different about John Williams stuff was the Lost in Space theme, and he did both of the themes for the original Lost in Space TV series, which sounded completely different than everything else he's done. But yeah, James Horner also did the. Did he not do the soundtrack for Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve? And I felt
Oh,
that use of continuo that seems to be a trademark of his work was there. But yeah, this was a nice place for him to start,
right.
and it got him enough attention where he was able to get much bigger work, and that seems to be the case. We have more up and comings on this cast than we've had in the previous film with Edward Albert and Grace Zabriskie,
Fascinating.
and I'm actually even Taffy O'Connell, which she went ahead to make other movies. It's just not the kind that we would watch. But
And
nevertheless,
Erin Moran, I knew I
from Happy
recognized her
Days,
face from Happy Days. Yeah.
yeah,
Which is the film. Now, Bill Paxton worked on, which one of these two films? Was that the
he worked
Battle
on.
Beyond the?
I think he worked on this one. James Cameron came in on Battle Beyond the Stars, and Bill Paxton came in as a painter on this one.
That is amazing. Yeah, as a painter, it got
And I
everybody.
think Cameron got to direct a little bit of um, one of the scenes in this because they were it was kind of slowing down, and he went to Corbin and said, let me come in and do this. Can we fix it?
Right, right. That that is incredible.
But
That, yeah, and of course the what were
go
you going
ahead,
to say?
go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know if we discussed. Yeah, the worm scene is that
Oh yeah,
with
well,
with it was cut from your version when you're
yeah,
it's been cut and uncut. I think internationally, I know in Britain, it was part of Britain had famously labeled some films video nasties and
actually,
basically, yeah,
what they had cut in the British version was Aaron Moran's head exploding.
oh my
They don't care about the
goodness,
sex; they just don't want the violence. So,
the violence, that was rough. That was whew,
yeah,
that was, and at that point you cared about that character because in this film in this film, which is interesting. Roger Corman, this he was kind of it gets this film looks like Alien for sure. I mean, the set design, the design of the pyramid, the outside of it, you're just you're kind of looking in the
yeah,
design. Where's the ancient astronaut that's been dead and stuck on that pyramid, like in the original Alien? But it's got very and of course, geez, very much organic designs on this pyramid,
yeah.
different body parts, orifices that people wander into, including the commander just decides to jump into one of the orifices. But
Yeah.
the but the plot is they've been sent by a person called the Master on this ship, the Quest,
The Planet Master,
to
yeah.
go to this planet to rescue. Right, to rescue rescue a crew that's been stranded there, and by the time they get there, I don't think there are no survivors of the crew, if I'm
They're
correct. I
not.
think
They're not. Yep.
right. They found one body they want to do an autopsy on. Some of the bodies they just burn, which kind of missed. Which I it's kind of like, oh, it's death. Let's just burn it. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, they decide to autopsy a couple of the bodies. What's been killing this previous crew? But they go down to this planet, and basically, then they start to die, and finally, Aaron Moran and actually the person that solves it, just almost if he solved it earlier, Aaron Moran could have lived, but you're basically being killed by whatever is your greatest fear, whatever you have that the fear. And Roger Corman kind of equated that to, the id, the things that we repress. Whatever you
Going
repress
back to
is going to
Forbidden
come back.
Planet,
And
yeah. Yeah, I
oh,
think he took a
100%.
scoop of a number of things. Obviously, the idea that much of Alien on Planet Side was done in such darkness. In fact, most of the Nostromo in Alien was done in so dark that you couldn't really tell what was where. And I think that he used that to his advantage because, I mean, if you turn the lights on, you just see they're running through a lumber yard, or I think in this case they had a storage unit that was being torn down, and they used that for junk piles and things like that to be the side of the pyramid and stuff like that. But it was certainly an idea that to make it scary, you just don't show everything, and they did that pretty
Right.
well there. And like I said, once
Yeah, that's
again,
a classic one. Yeah. But that would have been almost better with Aaron Moran, because you're right. They're following the rule, which is a really good rule. Sometimes what you don't see scares you more than what you do see. What
yeah,
you get the sound effects of something, and you don't see it. And of course, Roger, you're right. He's saving money, but that especially for Aaron Moran and the scene that they cut, that would have would have been one of those things best left unseen. To quote Spinal Tap,
yeah,
would have would have been good at that point, because you're just dreading it. She almost, if she, because yeah, we were talking about the one guy that figured it out. The character that figured it out was, Robert England. His character
right,
Ranger figures
Ranger,
out that it is your fears, and if you can just know that it's your greatest fear and turn that off, then that fear, whatever the monster is, simply disappears. He was fighting an identical version of himself,
right.
and so, which is kind of a strange fear, but when he figured it out, it just disappeared. But he couldn't relay that information in time to save Aaron and Moran, but he does save Edward Albert. But the strange thing we were talking about is Ranger Robert England, his character, it basically is just kind of written off. He lives, but we don't know what happens to him at the end of the movie.
No, I mean he is he helps Cameron, the main character, get to the
Right.
last step to meet with Cor, who turns out to be the plan. I'm giving away the film in case you really want to know how it ends. Uh,
Ah,
the,
yeah,
he
I
meets with
think
Cor
anybody
and
who's
finds out Cor is the Planet Master, Ray Walston, and
right.
then they get into a fight, and then he kills Ray Walston, and he becomes the Planet Master, and we don't know what's happened to Ranger. We think that perhaps they just dropped the scene of how they killed him because it didn't come out well or something, but they had
Or
no more
something.
use for him, and so they never made any other reference to him. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad he didn't die. He was my favorite character. But
Your
I don't
Ranger
know.
was your favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, something
He,
about Robert
he
Englund looked
I
very
enjoyed.
friendly.
Yeah, and Robert England did a good job of acting in the film too.
He did. He did.
Just yeah, he really sells it well. I think one of my favorite was he was the one that the character that read the script. I'm trying to remember his kind of like Quahad. Yeah, Quahad.
Yes.
Which is kind of, both of these films had a quick, like the character from Moby Dick, Quakeegg. I'm trying to remember how
Queequeg.
to basically Quahad. Yeah,
Queequeg.
exactly. Said it quick. Yes,
Queequeg.
thank you. Thank you. from
Anyway,
Moby
he
Dick.
was
They
kind of
both had a character.
a pseudo holy man kind of thing, and he only would fight with these crystals, which were shaped like throwing stars, and he used that to keep a
Which
door
really
open,
references,
and yeah,
and it references that character in Moby Dick.
yes,
Battle Beyond the Stars did not. That character was not near seen as much. You catch the name, and you realize, wait a minute, this is. But in this case, the character really acts like quick and from
But the
Moby
thing I
Dick
loved about
and it was great.
that came out was that
Yes,
he went to Roger Corman and said, "I think that I should play this as a mute." And Roger Corman said, "Why?" He said, "Have you read the script?" And Corman said, "Yeah, I think you're right." And so he became a mute because the script
he
was so bad.
he he comes off well. In this case, the script for Battle Beyond the Stars was written by John Sayles, who did a fantastic job with
Yes,
that
yes,
script to make it, all the themes, the humor that comes out. This one he did not write. I'll just say that he did not write. But it's kind of like other things that help save the movie. If you can, if it gets over the hump of being saved, but there's other things like the acting and the set design that come to the rescue. But the interesting, I do wish James Cameron and his music had been able to come to the rescue
yeah,
in this film. I It's the music for me, not James Cameron, James Horner, but for the music was just not as memorable in this film.
no.
Um,
But
and maybe
considering this was a much
the
cheaper
themes
film,
were more dark.
this only
Yes.
cost $700,000 to make, which was more in line with what
Whoa.
Corman movies were. So it was less than half the cost of the previous film, and it had better looks to it altogether than either one. And like you said, good acting in it. There was very good acting in it. I think that probably um, the least of the acting was from Erin Moran. She seemed a little bit stilted, but everybody else seemed pretty authentic. I particularly liked Grace Zabriskie in this because her whole idea when she
Oh,
goes in, she goes directly to the commander and says, "You're a little long in the tooth for this, and let's get out of here." And said, "Wait a minute, nobody's built it in yet." Well, they have 30 seconds to get there. I mean, she was very uh, like you would expect an old commander to be. We're not going to sit around and wait for everybody to get ready.
you
They'll do what I tell them.
and yeah, Bernard Behrens. You've seen the face. He's the older commander of
Yes,
the overall, of the mission.
yeah,
And you just wish he'd been around a little bit longer to interact more with Grace Zabriskie. That
really.
was a nice, uh,
Yeah, they really didn't have
yeah.
anything to do
They
with
both
their after they got there. They really didn't have anything to do with
right.
either one of them. They needed to do something to make them die because really the
Yeah,
only
yeah.
actual use of them was to have the little nervousness while she's going through hyperspace without any directions, and so that's that's something that I didn't get until I read the details about this. Is that he puts up the hyper jump coordinates, and what she does is deletes them and then hits the start button, and that is why
Oh,
he was so nervous. Might as well get there
at the
fast.
start of it,
Yeah.
I had missed that. I just knew there were problems, but yeah, I had missed the that some of the instructions were deleted. That's never a good thing.
Yeah.
And they get there, and she manages to. Another film this is similar to is um, it's an Italian film. It's called Planet of the Vampires, and there's some really it's made in the '60s, but some really interesting. The idea that, of course, Forbidden Planet too. The idea
Yeah.
that what part of you and that famous line I zapped it, but the famous line at the you only it's kind of you mentioned it referencing these horrors that you've got to fight that are actually connected to you and your id.
Yeah.
They finally realize it at the end of the movie. Can you remember that line? He says, "You only bring."
I'll have to look that. Let me see.
Oh yeah, you you bring the dangers you bring are
Yeah, I
or
think I just
connected.
paraphrased it. It wasn't a line. It was just that it was like in Empire Strikes Back when Luke says to Yoda, "What's in the cave?" and he says, "Only what you bring with you." And that was the
That's
kind of the
it.
same kind of thing that they had here. Although the only line in IMDb about this is let's see, "Hang on to your shorts, we're going to dump." So
That, and the other one though, and but what you said, the line that connects to Star Wars was really perfect for this place, the movie. There's a couple of lines, and that was a podcast I was listening to that mentioned that all of a sudden you'll have a line that comes up out of nowhere in this film, in this script, and when Commander Ilvar decides to just uh, he's going up the pyramid, the dangerous pyramid. You can tell he's older. He's thinking, "Why am I here?" He's way older than anybody else, and yet he's respected by the crew. But all of a sudden, he decides to just repel into one of these orifices. And before he does, he says, "Doubt is demon brother to despair. The doubt is demon's brother to despair. The demon's tail outwithers those who dare not dare." I was like, where did that come from? But the line that you mentioned, yeah, what you have, you only bring in what you take with you. That was perfect for the end of the film. But
yeah. Yeah, they
but
actually do
yeah,
have
I
they do
wish.
actually have some interesting quotes in here. Once again by Trantor, they're too busy being heroes out there to talk to us. Fame is the food that dead men eat.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
It
Um,
isn't. Yeah.
Doubt is demon brother to despair. Outwithers those who dare not dare. It's Shakespeare. It's Shakespeare. You
He
see that?
does a little bit of exactly. He does a little Shakespeare haiku and then jumps into the yeah. And and they try to save him. Edward Albert does his best to save him, but at that point he's almost determined to die, which is it's kind of
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what his fear was, but and it is the audience. All of a sudden you start to catch on what that this connects to your fear and it makes sense. But it this film is definitely a mixed bag of the two.
It really
I
is.
definitely
Yeah, I think if you
battle.
throw away the script, it would be a good film. But the script itself is just completely bonkers. This is the last scene in between Cameron and Core. "I'll find a way to kill you for what you've done. Perhaps you will, but enough, Cameron. Why let your emotions rule now after showing such admirable control of your fear? You already won the game." "A game? A children's game, Cameron. This pyramid is an ancient toy, a brilliant initiatory toy for the children of a vanished race to see their deepest fears and to learn to control them." "How can you know this?" "This is where I became master." "Why did she have to die? Why did they all have to die? Damn you, why?" "They could have lived, Cameron. They have chosen as you have chosen until now."
And then he kills Ray Walston by that point, ready to die. It's kind of like, yeah,
Right.
I'm ready to turn over, being the master, and and then for no reason at all, yeah, Cameron decides to become the new master. It's kind of implied at the end of the film, and we
I don't think he has any
completely,
choice on the matter. He kills the master in it, and he becomes the master. So I'm thinking
yeah,
that they needed another couple of minutes in the film for him to say, "Now what do I do? How do I get out of here?"
in
Were
a
they going to
kind of
send a ship? Was Ranger going to get a ship? We never heard from him, so perhaps he didn't die. But
that leaves a door open for becoming Freddy Krueger at some point.
yeah, yeah, he's found out that he can scare himself, so maybe he's got a future.
Yeah, I would love to see a new version of this film, or at least a scene to kind of launch off a Freddy Krueger in space type. We did it with Jason, so why not for Freddy Krueger? Oh God, that was a yeah. I think we made this film as much fun as it was, or maybe a little more fun than it was. It's got flashes, but Battle Beyond the Stars is just a much more entertaining film as a whole overall. Um, uh, I don't know if you remember a student named Jimmy Womack, a terrific film student.
Yes, yes.
He loves great, yeah, and he's such a Corman fan, and yeah, he was the one. I knew from the 50s by Roger Corman, and I love those films. But Jimmy really helped me educate me into what he'd done into the 60s, 70s, and then the whole Roger Corman film school. Jack Nicholson,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
actors were touched by Roger. Yeah,
Let's say
it is a
something.
long.
Yeah, let's say something about this. A lot of criticism is being made of modern day science fiction television, mostly. That
Ah,
the scripting is bad and the acting is bad and the uh, concepts that they come up with is bad. I mean, people don't much care for it, but they vilify some of the older stuff. I know we're both big fans of Star Trek: The Original Series, which they had a
right.
lot of Roger Corman esque touches in their sets and planets there. I mean, they had one
True.
sound stage that was they had poured concrete in so they could have a rocky planet, and they used a nearby park to be any other planet location that they needed, and the back lot on I think uh, Universal they used to have a town, and they managed to
Right.
do a very passable job really without spending a whole lot of money. And it seems that these days what we have is uh, the necessity of making cinematic quality, special effects, Star Wars quality, MCU quality pictures, and having as a result 4 episodes because you can't afford to do 20 episodes spending that much money on all of the other things. And I kind of wonder if we're better off with Roger Cormans of the world than we are now with the say the J.J. Abrams.
And the Gene Roddenberrys of the world without a lot of money. All they had was they could work. There were no limitations on how many hours of the day they would work. All these guys would work 18-hour days, chain smoke, drink coffee, and
Yeah,
and guys and gals. Roger Corman opened the door for a lot of women to direct, but it's like the more it's a classic, the more you're limited, sometimes the better you are. We talk about that with George Lucas when he had to face those limitations. They made him better,
yeah.
and the
Well,
same
Robert
goes for.
Rodriguez, if you think about the Spy Kids pictures, those were made mostly with blue screen, and in fact, Rodriguez did not want a whole lot of money to make these films because he thought that would be a limiting factor if he could just pay for everything that he wanted to do. He wanted to be able to
That's
figure out how to make things work.
that's exactly right. And it was a philosophical principle with
Yes.
Robert Rodriguez. There's the film El Mariachi where he's shooting in Mexico. Yeah, he's got the briefcase, is a guitar player. Yeah, guitar player
Yeah.
mariachi.
Guitar case. Yeah.
The Yeah, exactly. Guitar case. He had he had it was two cases. One was this old beat up case that they used for exteriors, and then the other was the beautiful case inside with the gun and
Right.
the weapon. And but he said, I could have made it one case, and but it was just it would have cost me a lot of money to do that. It was just I had this friend already had this case that I modified on the inside, so I had this old case. He said, if I start modifying the old case, spending money on it, that just turns the spigot to spend more money. And so he said, no, I will not. These are things I will not do. I will stay cheap. And like you were saying,
Yeah.
it's a philosophy.
It really is. Let's see. It was. Oh goodness, Robert Justman. Bob Justman was the associate producer in the
Right.
original Star Trek series, and he claimed that they had a budget big enough to do a decent radio show. And I've thought about this on a number of occasions that if you turned the picture off on Star Trek, you didn't miss anything for the most part
That's
because they would describe it anyway. What is it that you see? Well, it looks like this, and even while we're seeing it, which looks, there was the one that I remember the Spectre of the Gun. You remember that one where
oh
they
yeah.
had the rotating loaf of bread that was the beacon. I think
The
they
alien.
expected it to be something else, but
Yeah.
to me it just looked like a loaf of bread. And I'm thinking a lot of these things
Right.
could have worked without pictures. So
That yeah.
in this case, this Roger Corman picture, this Galaxy of Terror, would have worked without sound.
as testified to the
Yeah.
Queequeg
Yes.
character.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Saying that, yeah. And you know what you said about Star Trek so true because with the tricorder, you're taking tricorder readings and you're describing what's on the tricorder, which lets you see you're hearing what the planet looks like because we're
Right.
describing the tricorder readings.
Well, if you've listened to this audio drama that they did for Khan, it was
Right,
they they had all the sound effects. You could hear the tricorder whine, and you say, okay, we know that's a tricorder. We know the cricket sound is the communicator. We know what the phaser sounds like. All of this, you don't need to see any of that. You already know what it looks like, and it worked incredibly well without any pictures at all. Just the acting was right there.
that is fantastic. Are they in between seasons with what's the name of the show? It's called Con or
It's Star Trek Con. It's
Star
on
Trek.
you. It's on YouTube. You can look it up, and it's like 8 episodes, and it's supposed
Right,
to bridge the time between when they were left on SETI Alpha 5 and when they were found by the Reliant. And so
right.
those 20 years in between are covered in this 8 episodes, and it's absolutely fantastic. And
Oh,
it's no
that
pictures. It's just audio.
that is incredible. That
Yeah.
I've listened to a couple of them. I've not finished the series at all, but that sounds. And speaking of sound effects, we talked about a lot of time we'll cover music. Um, the I'm thinking of sound more. The sound effects come more to mind in Battle Beyond the Stars, again because of the design for each of the alien worlds.
Yes.
And oh, one thing that is so striking that yes, is it's Sam Jeffy or Jeff? I can't remember for
Jaffe.
the Jeffy, right? From Battle Beyond the Stars. You got these fascinating you got Jeff Corey playing back to Battle Beyond the Stars real quick. Jeff Corey plays the kind of father figure leader of the Akirans on the planet Akira. He's
Right.
blind, kind of has that Obi-Wan type of vibe to him. And then there's so many different parallels. His parallel would be Sam Jaffe, who is kind of a little bit like, again, a little Forbidden Planet, a little bit like the father figure on Forbidden Planet, who's although the opposite of him, he's ready for his daughter. You know, you're going to stay and mate with my daughter, John. Very much the opposite of it,
Yeah.
but he's also thinking about his daughter. I'll say that. But on that planet, with the father daughter, the rest of them are androids,
Yeah.
and one of them starts to sing the strangest song. You know, so many times, and again, a podcast was referencing this too. A lot of times, all the music is kind of familiar in movies. It's like, oh, it's throwback music from the seven, like Guardians of the Galaxy. So much, throwback music from the 70s and 80s. But in this case, there's no reference to Earth. The only person from Earth is George Papard in the whole movie. No, hardly anybody's heard of Earth. So we're on this planet of this kind of like a space station that's full of androids, and the android just starts to sing, and it's the strangest music you ever heard. So
Yeah.
it just kind of reminded me of some of the sound design, really alien sound design, and those robots were fantastic on that planet. just just one little side thing. All apparently on the planet with the father and daughter, they just make and repair robots, and but they all had personalities, and that's just in one scene. And I think they did not have many in that studio of the lumberyard. From what I gather, they would shoot all the scenes of basically they'd make a set for like a week or 4 days. And so all the scenes on the planet, not the planet, but the Battlestar space station, the space
Yeah.
station
Yeah.
that's full of robots, they'd shoot that for 4 days and then they'd tear that down and make another set. But each time they'd make that little world and they added so many cool details to the world and the robots themselves were just hilarious,
Yeah.
the
So
including a little robot car that picks them up.
there you go.
Say it again.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, whoops!
I think that
Yeah,
he created a world there, and I think that that's something you can say about both of these pictures. That while they both have different strengths, obviously, they're both watchable. Maybe not rewatchable anytime soon, but certainly they're worthy of being watched at least once, just to see what you can do with a pittance, which is what they had to work with.
this this is a word we may have to bleep, but I will. But the editor of the film is speaking of kind of all the mixed bag things that you get with the Roger Corman film. The editor of the film of his name is Holtzman. And he's written a
Yeah.
book on Battle Beyond the Stars, and then later on directed for Corman. But he said, our job was to turn into mediocrity. That was something that you had to do.
There you have it. I think we should end on that
Yeah,
before they find us.
right. And that's in print in his book. I just
Okay, okay. A direct quote there. Well,
yes.
thank you, Professor. We will see you. We're not back next week, but week after next, we're going to be back and talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey, where when you have the budget and Arthur C. Clarke on your side, maybe we and of course a top-notch director in Robert Wise. That's a film to talk about, and that's what we're going to be back on in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, I'll be over all of this stuff by then, and we'll be able to get down into that film. So,
Absolutely.
as always, great to see you. Happy New Year once again, and for all of those of you out there, I find my picture. I'm clipping back and forth. Thank you for joining us. Remember to subscribe and like, and thank you for joining us. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Till then, don't go far.